Hey everyone, it's Alex, and welcome to the Marvel Snap Decks of the Week, the weekly series where I showcase the top 10 best decks in Marvel Snap. And if you'd like to support my content, consider hitting the subscribe button. I really appreciate you guys joining our wonderful community, and hitting that button is one of the ways that you can do so. Let's get started with deck number 10, which is going to be Move. Now, it's taken a bit of work to get Move to where it is right now. Honestly, a solid win rate and a solid cube rate here at 55% win rate at 0.44 cube rate. Move has traditionally not been that high. What's interesting is that we're seeing a lot of Tribunal Move, but the statistics are far lower than this particular deck. This is featuring, of course, Aranya and Madam Web. It utilizes Alioth alongside Heimdall as a turn 6 play that you can utilize, because sometimes you just really don't want a Heimdall. And the interesting thing about this deck, in my play experience as well, is that with Madam Web, you can still generate power and value by like moving your dagger and then playing Alioth or something like that, right? So the turn 6 play with Alioth, you're still generating power by moving your cards, and that makes it quite effective. Cosmo particularly good in the current meta, and honestly, this deck is performing. It's playing well, and if you're the kind of person that wants to like really learn Move and kind of get a handle for how this is playing, this is probably one of the best choices you can make in terms of the decks for Move, because a lot of the other ones, again, statistically aren't performing. This one statistically is very strong, and bear in mind, a lot of people experimenting with Move are still kind of dragging the win rate down because it does have a more complex play pattern. And so as a result, a true Move master would probably find this deck pretty successful. So even though it's coming in at number 10 from a statistics standpoint, I bet you in the hands of a true master of Move, it probably performs higher. So I think Move might be starting to catch its feet, especially with Aranya here doing the work that it's doing. We go to Destroy here. Now, this isn't typical Destroy for number 9. It's running a 56% win rate at a 0.34 cube rate. It is running the Attuma Nimrod package. And it's been a long time since we've seen a kind of major shift in the archetype of Destroy as a whole. It has traditionally been kind of the same 12 cards for the longest time, but the change to Attuma has really brought out Nimrod in a big way. And I've been a Nimrod believer for a while. I've been playing so much Nimrod in Phoenix Force, which doesn't make this top 10, but it's currently my favorite deck in the game. But like, honestly, it's so good. It's so good, Nimrod, right now, and I love the fact that Attuma is being used as well. Attuma obviously able to activate like Wolverines and X-23s as well. Once you get that play pattern going, you start to get a handle of how well Attuma fits into this deck. It's also notable that you're running Aranya here, which is very useful into the likes of X-23, Wolverine, and specifically Deadpool, so that you can kind of get that Deadpool kind of running up high. Now, keep in mind, you do have Death here, you do have Null, so just destroying things and making a Wolverine bigger with Aranya and getting that cycle going isn't the worst thing you can do. Obviously, Hulkbuster's in this deck too, but now you have Deadpool, Hulkbuster, you have Aranya, Deadpool. You have these different lines. You even have Aranya and then Deadpool, then Hulkbuster if you really want, right? So a lot of different options here with the deck, and it's honestly, it's performing well at a 56% win rate. It's nice to see Destroy kind of getting back into the top 10 of the meta. And then we have Bounce at 56% win rate and a 0.43 cube rate. Silver Sable continues to be a very high-performing card from a cube rate perspective individually, but obviously in this deck is doing really well. It's interesting to see that Werewolf by Night is making this list. It's been a card that, like, in my experimentation, I honestly don't like it. I feel like it's too weak, but the statistics don't lie. The deck is performing well. The cube rate is very strong, but it feels so awkward to play Werewolf by Night right now, especially with the amount of clog we're seeing, so just be very wary of that. If you're in a pocket meta where there's a lot of clog being played, this deck might not be the one you want to turn to, considering how susceptible it is to getting clogged up, and even your hand getting clogged up with, like, you know, Falcon picking up rocks from debris or stuff from Kate Bishop, the Acid Arrow, and etc. Okay, but it is performing well into the right matchups. That takes us to number 7, and it's Agatha All Along. The new show for Agatha has launched this week. I watched the first episode. I don't think it's that good yet, but I mean, it's only the first episode. We're going to watch some more soon, right? And we'll hopefully kind of pick a little bit. I heard the episode 2 is better, but anyways, it's a whole other discussion here. With Agatha, this has been a card that's been forever at like the 30% win rate range. So the change that they made to Agatha very considerably upped its competitive nature, and it's performing well. And I mean, with the likes of Ghost Rider and of course Wave to get it out early, you got a lot of options here. I like the idea of using Black Bolt Stature. I think it's a really creative package with this particular deck, and of course Legion making its way into a lot of lists as well. Honestly, the deck is just good. It's good. Agatha's legit. It's not meta shattering. It's not warping the meta, but it's doing well. And you'll love to see that at number 7. You'll also note here that we don't have discard on this top 10 because it's actually not performing as good as it feels, right? I did look into it because I know that it's seeing a ton of play, but its cube rate is like just barely above 20 and its win rate's like 53, 54. So it doesn't break a top 10 list, but its play rate's really, really high. So it's being played the most, but it's not actually like winning games as much as some of these other decks like Oddbolt at a 58% win rate and a 0.31 cube rate. Oddbolt is just doing good. This deck has been around for a little bit here, and it's running that Darkhawk package, but also the Disruption package as well of Cassandra Nova. You got the Black Bolt, right? I like the Viper Hood play as well. That's a fantastic one as well. I mean, there's a lot to like about this deck. It has like multiple small packages put together in an overall shell that seems to be performing really well. 58% win rate. The cube rate's still solid at 0.31. We're seeing some higher numbers this week in some other decks, but honestly, this deck is performing really well, and it's been very consistent over the last several weeks. So I think that Oddbolt is a pretty good choice if you're looking to like not play whatever the heck other meta decks are playing. The play rate on this is much lower than the others, which is unfortunate considering how good its stats are, okay? Number 5, it's Zoo. Zoo was number 1 last week, but now we have a Destroy deck performing really well, climbing the meta, and when Destroy kind of gets really good, Zoo gets pulled down a little bit, okay? Very notable here that this deck still does not feature Kyera. I actually did a little bit of a check here, and I'm like, okay, I would personally cut Hawkeye, or Key Bishop, sorry, for Kyera, but statistics show that this deck actually performs the Kyera-based version. Now, if you're someone that just wants to retreat on the Destroy matchup, then that's fine, but otherwise, this deck is performing really well at a 58% win rate and a 0.37 cube rate. Nothing to scoff at here. It is still putting up serious points. It's not quite as lofty as it was last week, again, because Destroy making a bit of a comeback, but hey, it's still performing very good at a number 5 on this meta list. And that takes us to number 4, and Thena Pride is making a comeback. Thena kind of fell off after it got that little 1-point nerf, and then, I mean, other cards came out that were really impactful on the meta, but at a 58% win rate and a 0.46 cube rate, this Thena shell with Angela is doing very, very well. Still running the copycat here, despite the fact it no longer steals the cards, it only copies the cards. You do have Shang-Chi, which is still one of the most cube-stealing cards in Marvel Snap. Gwenpool Vision, a lot of value being generated, and the surprise play of Juggernaut, which is honestly phenomenal on turn 6. A very interesting deck, very unique, relatively low play rate in compared to some of the other decks out there, but from a statistics standpoint, this Thena Pride deck is performing really, really well. If you're looking for something a little different, a little off meta, that can potentially give you some answers, especially with Killmonger clearing up the clog, Killmonger beating Zoo, Killmonger disrupting Destroy, because if they're building up the Deadpool and you throw initiative with Kitty Pryde, suddenly you're able to kind of wipe out their Deadpool and generate a lot of value for yourself. So this deck, honestly, performing really well in the current meta, despite its relatively low play rate. And that takes us over here to the number 3, Toxic Evo, to my surprise. Now, Toxic Evo, the last couple weeks, has been performing really well. It started with Silver Sable's release. It seemed like it was a card that added a little bit of an extra injection of power into this archetype as a whole. And now at a 59% win rate, it's running a modest but good cube rate at 0.32. But it's just good. It's just a good deck, and Ajax is one of the few 5-drops that really competes with 6-drops in power. Gilgamesh and Ajax tend to go super vertical, surprisingly vertical for their costs. I mean, they're incredibly statistically, we'll say efficient. Is probably the way I would describe Ajax, because you're taking all that negative power across both boards and applying it into a vertical tower of power, but you're also disrupting your opponent, and I mean, in the case of Ajax, disrupting yourself a little bit. U.S. Agent, a silent winner here as well. Man-Thing, pretty good. So you have the Man-Thing, you got the U.S. Agent. You got a lot of debuffing happening here, and it ultimately results in a massive Ajax and an Abomination that is usually free, if not pretty damn close. So it also makes it so that, in my experience with this deck, the amount of debuffing you're doing, you don't need magic to kind of get a free A-Bomb, or because like you just play A-Bomb down because Ajax is 5 and usually A-Bomb's like a 1 or 0. A lot of value being generated by A-Bomb in conjunction with the Ajax. That takes us to the top 2. Clog, it should be no surprise. Clog is literally everywhere right now. We're seeing a lot of Hela play. The way you counter Hela is by, pulling it with Dr. Octopus early is one option. The other option is just literally take away the amount of space they have. White Widow does that effectively. Green Goblin does that effectively. Kate Bishop does it effectively half the time. You also have Titania that does it effectively. You have the Viper Hood play. This whole deck is designed to counter Hela. And that's kind of the reason why, like, you know, I understand that Hela's, like, play popularity is kind of concerning. But I'm telling you, statistically, it's not performing that well. And it is kind of being beaten by this deck, which is running a 60% win rate at 0.45 cube rate. These are great stats. And so if your pocket meta just has nothing but Hela, play this. Destroy them, and you'll have a good time, because this deck absolutely just stomps Hela in so many different ways. Every single card here is designed to basically punish them to the absolute craziest degree. So I like the clock. And of course, a Selene deck. Come on now. When was the last time you played Selene, right? So pretty interesting to see Selene make a top two list, I should say. And then we have the Chonky Boys. Number 1, 60% win rate and an astonishingly high and absolutely insane cube rate of 0.70. This thing is a War Machine deck with really big cards that obviously with War Machine you can drop down the Infinite on turn 6. You got Kyra to protect the big boys as well. You got that Blink Electro play with the ramp. But most importantly, Scar is going to get so discounted so fast because of all these Chonky Boys going down. You've got Kyra, you've got Armor, you've got Madam Web. You've got a lot of opportunities to make Shang-Chi miss or be ineffective. And obviously that Scar gets discounted right down to 0 in some of these games. Really cool deck. It's really fun to see something creative hit the top of the list this week, and honestly an astonishing win rate and an astonishing cube rate. So if you want to play anything this week, I think it's Clog to counter the Hela play, and this here because it is just a remarkably good deck. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you on that next one.